Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard. Welcome to another edition of the Pan-African Pyramid Show that happens here every Friday from 5 to 8. And a recorded version runs on NBS television on Saturday from 4 to 5 p.m. and a repeat runs on Monday on the same television from 2 to 3 p.m. My name is Andrew Irumba Katsebe, your speaker. But let's continue. Refugee crisis in Africa. How do we end senseless wars on the continent? We know that the biggest contribution to refugee influx in the world, not just Africa, is actually as a result of wars. And so, comrade, Turkey is actually the biggest host of refugees in the world. It has about 3.6 million refugees, followed by Islamic Republic of Iran, 3.4. Colombia is third, in the third place, 2.5. And Uganda hosting about 1.4 million refugees. And out of those, you realize that the biggest camp, refugee camp, is in Ibidibidi, in Arua there. And so the biggest contribution or contributor to this problem is the unresolved political questions. And most of these are happening in Africa. Somebody says, I am a religious person. I'm into the world of preaching. I'm a businessman. I'm so and so. The politics of the country doesn't actually affect me. But actually, everybody in the world is affected by politics. If you have bad politics in your country, it will affect you. The social, economic, and development affairs, all of them are being driven by a politician. I'm sure even Rome is being driven by a politician, although Pope may say I'm the president, but it's the politician running the business. UK, you may say I am the king, recently it was the queen, but it's the politician running the economy and every other thing. So, understanding and participating in the politics of the country is very important. And so, having these disputes resolved peacefully helps in controlling the influx of these refugees. And the other sad story about the refugee influx in the world is that the biggest numbers are actually children and girls. Children and the youth. The children are the biggest number of refugees. So the elders are conflicting. The children are suffering, and they are the biggest. Then apart from that, the girls. And you know the problems that come with girls being in a concentrated camps and so on. So actually the elders who are causing these conflicts are not so much affected by these effects of people being displaced from their own homes. So the question is, in a Pan-African context, how can we try to talk to our brothers and sisters to learn to resolve issues amicably on the table? And by doing so, we shall be resolving or solving the problem of refugees in Africa. I will begin with my comrade, my able comrade, the chairman of Pan-African Movement, Uganda chapter, Comrade Rugarama, who is also chairman of Pan-African Movement and also a human rights.
Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
My reading of the refugee crisis, if you like, Mr. Speaker, sir, the reports I have looked at dating back a number of years, and the recent one from the United Nations Refugee Council indicate that it is a global problem. And the majority of the refugees are not willing refugees. In other words, they do not export themselves into refugee camps. In the situation of Uganda, it was because mainly, as we very well remember, the Konyi and other rebel outfit activities in the greater part of the eastern and the northern region that we had creation of refugee camps in northern Uganda. The situation in Sudan, especially South Sudan, created the refugee problem in Arua, who were freeing the evil hand that Khartoum used to impact on the southern or south part now, or south Sudan. The crisis that has punctuated DRC, formerly Congo, right from the days of Leopold II, handed down to Belgium, later short-lived through Patrice Lumumba, later handed down to Wazabanga Koko Mobutu, who was nothing but a representative of the USA and Belgium. Then later, of course, the beehive of all manner of rebel activities and the so-called UN in MONUC and MONUSCO that created and perpetuated increased insecurity that led to the increased refugee presence, especially in Uganda, is as a consequence indeed of the wars, instability, and lack of peace in DRC. Therefore, the one major crisis that has created and increased on the refugee crisis, globally speaking, has been wars. Wars as a consequence of disagreements, whether those disagreements are internal or external, has been the number one cause of the increased refugee crisis. There has also been natural catastrophes, such as floods, which are a consequence of bursting of rivers and lakes and sometimes heavy rains. But the natural calamities have not been as worse as the man-made catastrophes that have created the refugee crisis. The number of countries that have been mentioned in the preamble as hosting the biggest number of refugees on the globe, Uganda coming number 4th. Somewhere in the queue there was Sudan. As we talk now, Sudan is exporting refugees. How, therefore, we can mitigate the impact of refugees is as follows. We need to work on our leadership. Speaking for Africa, the celebrated Chinua Achebe said of the leadership on the African continent, writing about the politics in Nigeria, he said that the problem of Nigeria is lack of leadership. That could as well qualify for Africa. The problem of Africa is lack of independent, clear-headed, ideologically correct, political and other manner of leadership. And this is not invented in any other continent. We have simply been sabotaged and we have lost ourselves. Number one killer is lack of self. Malcolm X is very instructive when he says that when a community, when a person is denied, and that argument is also reinforced by Minister Louis Farrakhan, that when a man, and man means woman and man, I use that interchangeably, let me not be hanged for that, is denied identity and is continuously told he, she is nothing for over a long time, he loses identity. When you lose identity, it becomes very difficult for you to discover your potential. When the potential is not discovered, you do not live to full fruition. What has happened over the years on the African continent is that we have been subjected through a lot of trauma. We have gone through slave trade, went through colonialism. Later, we are now suffering another form of colonialism in the form of imperialism. And this imperialism, which has been moving around in very subterranean ways, has created a type of lack of self-realization, to the extent that we now engage ourselves in useless, ideologically useless wars, which have created and increased the pandemic and the crisis of refugees.
Are the African leaders aware that they involved in senseless wars?
Unfortunately, the type of leaders we have, majority of them, because I know that we also have those who actually qualify to fit in the shoes or near there of the likes of Thomas Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah, Ben Bera, Amilcar Cabral, Patrice Lumumba. I know for a fact that we have got, because the likes of, even in a death, Dr. Pombe Magufuli and others I may not go into, were coming close. The problem that we have is the unwritten blueprint of Kissinger, the one-time foreign secretary of state in America, who wrote a blueprint of all the countries by then, and that was done in the present day Dubai. It is that very blueprint. It doesn't matter the so-called hyped democratic credentials any African president may have, you will still suffer the fate regardless of your benevolence as far as your leadership is concerned. And that fate will be that your country will perpetually be under the claws and the shackles of the imperialist, unless, like I said, Africa, through, I'm glad to report, the African Union, which, although it has suffered its past mistakes, which have been realized, and it is getting its acts together through some of the formations such as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we now know for a fact that unless we get a rethink, a rebirth of knowledge, another revolution, there is no way we can now talk about independence when we have got Africa as fragmented and at wars as a consequence of ideological bankruptcy, whereby our differences are on religion, on tribe, other than consolidating. Actually, our diversity should be a rallying point for consolidating our strength and governing ourselves into prosperity and all forms and manner of development. It is therefore the fact that Africa is at war with herself, and as a consequence of allowing her borders to be porous, and the borders in this particular manner, I do not necessarily mean the physical borders. We have got other areas where we must cross the borders, and Africa has in the past not managed. I'm not saying it has even managed now, but at least we are getting there. The first sure way of curing one's disease is to know that you have a disease. Africa, at least now, to a very good extent, knows that she has got a disease. And now we are on the prescription of how we must cure that disease. We know even who imported or brought that disease to us. Now, we must not look there for solutions. The refugee crisis, Mr. Speaker, sir, in recapitulation, is such that if we can get our acts together as Africa, check ourselves in as far as the wars are concerned, senseless, non-informed, baseless wars, we regroup and we work on our economies, because we fight simply because we have almost nothing to lose. our levels of intra-trade are very low, and it will not take a minute for a country to fight another country simply because you know you are not trading with that particular country and you have got nothing that you think you are going to lose by engaging in that kind of senseless war. When we increase, like we are getting the act together, the intra-trade between and amongst ourselves, which is being viewed and consolidated through the Africa Free Continental Trade Area, then the senseless, useless wars are going to be done away with. And the issue of refugees on the African continent is also going to get away. We must not be naive to think immediately after the Second World War that the people who created the United Nations High Commission for Refugees are not interested in having that as an enterprise. I want to conclude, Mr. Speaker, sir, by telling the audience, and this is not an allegation, you must dig deep. There is a story behind the story. What is the story behind the story? That the framers of the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, that body which was created, they didn't create it simply because they were feeling for you, for me, and those who have passed. They created it, and now it has gone to a level of a multinational business cooperation. And as long as it exists, they are going to ferment wars. These wars are going to create refugees. The refugees are going to create a business for the powers that control United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees.
What you're saying is that now it's a business.
It has been a business, and the minds who created it have been preying on the minds which are over believing and thinking that the framers of such a body were so nice a people, like the people who presumably abolished slave trade, when in actual sense slave trade had to be done away with simply because it was not fulfilling the purpose, since they had invented and gone to another revolution of the steamer and the industrial revolution.
Thank you so much, Comrade Dan Rugarama. Give him a round of applause. Let me take the opportunity to recognize some of our first-timers here. Daphne Navide from Uganda National Farmers Federation. She's the Assistant Communications Officer. Thank you for coming. And all of you comrades whom I have not yet recognized, but it's your first time to come here, please, we welcome you. This is your home. Let me invite Comrade Ishimwe Shalom, who is a peace fellow from the Refugee Law Project. The next 15 minutes should be yours.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
As he said, my name is Shalom Ishimwe. I lead a refugee youth-led organization called Rendezvous Youth Group. And I'm also, like he said, a peace fellow and cross-border dialogue and youth empowerment for peace in this Great Lakes region.
So I may think you're one of those who wouldn't want the refugee influx to reduce. It should ever continue to happen. Because in an event that you end the refugees in the world, then where will your project work? You'll be bankrupt.
I myself, who is speaking, I'm a refugee too. I've been a refugee in Uganda since 2018.
Hey, then you're a good refugee. I think you should also become a refugee. You're a refugee.
Yes. Okay.
Refugee from where?
From Congo.
From Congo is a
DRC.
DRC.
Exactly. That's why I'm a refugee. You're saying I'm tall. And that's where all these problems are saying are coming from. You are this, so you shouldn't be here because you are this. And I would like to pick it up from where the previous speaker was talking about what are the causes of these refugees. We have seen that most of the biggest cause is the walls. And what is causing this wall and why these wars are not stopping. In DRC, there have been wars at least more than 20 years. Where I do come from, in eastern part of DRC, there are more than 150 rebel groups, and they are always increasing day to day.
More than what?
150 rebel groups.
Doing what?
That's where I'm going. So,
if you collected all those people, Mr. Eric Sakwa, you are a human resource person, if you collected all those groups, gave them land, dug and grew rice, would we be really bothered about whether Ukraine has sent grain or not in Africa? 115 rebel groups. And those are young people. Those are young people. Exactly. If you collected all of them, gave them seeds to grow grain, rice, would Africa be bothered whether Ukraine and Russia have refused to allow rice to come to Uganda?
Exactly. So that's where I'm heading. Why are they there? Why do we have these wars? It's because there is someone who is benefiting from the existence of these walls. There is some interest. And I think if you are to tackle this problem, we need to look at the interest and who is benefiting. Because if I'm benefiting from my work, like he was saying, I don't want anyone to end it. Because if tomorrow you end where I'm earning from, then I'm not going to earn from. So what are some of those interests? Of course, they are the one which is more obvious and comes at the top is wealth, which is underground. Mineral resources, we have gold, we have diamond, we have cobalt. We know that Tesla, these guys who are doing electrical cars, they are getting it from the places where a young kid of 8 years is not going to school, rather is going to get those minerals which are going to make electrical cars. According to me, I think the sustainable solution we have is now to involve the young people, the generation which is coming to bring the change. Because the truth of the matter is, we are saying, oh, our leaders, but our leaders, we don't import leaders. Leaders come from our own society. So if we have bad leaders, it's because we have a bad society. And Africa is one of the continents which has a very young generation. So if you are to invest in this generation, we teach them, first of all, what is peace? To understand that peace is not merely absence of insecurities or wars. Now that's when they are going to understand it better, because we may say, okay, me, I'm a refugee here now in Uganda because in Uganda there is peace. But the truth is, everyone is a potential refugee at any time. No one ever thought that in Europe in 2023 we shall have refugees who are Europeans, but now they are there. So which means no one is at peace. And if you have your neighbor who the house which was caught by fire, anytime it may even reach out to you. So that's why we need to make the young people understand the importance of peace and how they should protect it, and also unity.
Is your project or organization or any other person in that community, what are they doing in ensuring that at least they mitigate the causes of conflicts? And finally, these conflicts now breed refugees. Are some of those organizations that are dealing with the refugees trying to talk to our governments here? Are they trying to talk to the refugees? You are saying you have about 115 rebel groups. The organizations, the international organizations that are supporting refugees, especially the UNHCR, what are they doing in ensuring that at least they do not actually increase on the refugee influx in the world, not just about Africa? Are there some things that you're doing that really, by the time this refugee leaves Uganda back to his native country, that person is a transformed person? He's going to be a change agent. Is there something you guys are doing?
Yes, that is one of the things which are happening. As I've said, I'm a peace fellow. And in this program, we are coming from 4 countries in this Great Lakes region. And all about you are learning, it's all about peace building. And from there, of course, some of us are refugees. And apart from that, there are different organizations which helps refugees, first of all, to learn about peace building. There are some actions which have ever happened. Like recently, the government of Burundi has been coming to Uganda to have some talks with the Burundian refugees here in Uganda, and most of them, they have voluntarily repatriated back to Burundi. And I know some of the dialogues which has been happening in northern Uganda between South Sudanese refugees and their government. And this is something which is still continuous. And as it happens, we always see some fruits. But the main thing is, even among the refugee communities themselves, there are different refugee-led organizations whereby they are training or they are teaching the refugees here about peace building, to see that at some point they are going to go back in their countries and they are able to develop their countries, because there are 3 durable solutions of refugees which was designed by the UN. One is voluntary repatriation, which is going back to your country voluntarily, not forced. The other one is resettlement, whereby someone is taken to those Western countries. Another one is local integration, whereby you can acquire citizenship in the asylum country. So repatriation is the main one which everyone always tell people to go for, because it's more sustainable. No one who doesn't like to be in their country. So as I wind up, like I was saying, it's now, because I'm happy that in this room, most of us, we are young people, let's try to change our continent. Let's try to change the narrative of our continent. We do agree that the present that we have now, it's not so good, and even the past, but we can change it. By changing it, it's by cultivating the culture of Ubuntu. Let's cultivate peace, let's cultivate unity and love of our continent.
Thank you.
And continent is not merely land, but even the people within that continent.
Thank you so much. Ubuntu. Let's build Ubuntu, isn't it? That's the message I go with.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate, with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Let me invite Comrade Eric Sakwa. Eric Sakwa, the next 10 minutes should be yours.
Looking at the refugee crisis in Africa, it is common knowledge that each country is a potential importer and exporter of refugees. The difference lies on how to manage our politics, how to manage our leadership, how to manage our resource envelope. We have seen that there are surging trajectory humanitarian crisis for refugees, specifically Uganda taking a lead in Africa, because we are the fourth in the whole world. That means we are taking the gold medal in terms of importing refugees in Africa. Mr. Chairman, what does that mean? Or what does it imply? It implies that Uganda is feeling the pinch and the strain on the land, on food, resources, social services, provided by humanitarian actors and specifically by government. We have seen an uphill battle for education. We've seen an uphill battle on malnutrition. We've seen the uphill battle on mental health. Now, looking at how things are progressing now, armed conflicts between rival factions. We've seen countries where which are the greatest exporters of refugees in other countries. The recent ones where we realized where there was war We've seen just recently here in Sudan. We saw where instances where armed conflicts between the rival factions of the paramilitary faction and then the Sudan government forces led by Abdel Fattah Burhan, and then the rapid support forces created, as we talk now, more than 2 million refugees to the neighboring countries. We've also seen conflicts throughout Africa. The insurgents in West Africa, the Boko Haram. I am a regular listener of BBC Focus on Africa. And every time I tune Focus on Africa, stories from Nigeria, Boko Haram, it is a daily meal on the news of BBC. So that means that we have a lot of issues that we need to put up. When you look at in Ethiopia, the Tigray region is also a daily meal where conflicts has become actually, like Ethiopia, conflicts have now become they are permanent relatives now, because issues of refugees being created by conflicts is being perpetuated by a process where there is a failure to initiate equal distribution of national cake. Because we are looking at the causes of refugees. Of course, one of them is unrest and civil wars. But what causes those civil wars? Unstable distribution of national cake. The political cake. Because a country where national cake is distributed equally, there are no wars. You cannot create a war when you are eating. It is only we still have that mentality of the winner takes it all. And that is the problem. That is the problem of Africa's politics. Politics in Africa has become politically dehydrated, totally. And as a result, the concept of winner takes it all has created a problem. We go for elections. There is no broad-based government that is formed, whether you've failed, you're in a position or you are in government. Now, that concept of winner takes it all, because we have what we call parties, multi-party politics. A party that takes the majority forms the government.
But it is actually your government that loves that. Winner takes it all.
Well, we are part of that, and that's why I've said that it is a big problem, and we need to change that, because the winner takes it all concept has caused problems. Those that will not, of course, when we come in politics, when we go in politics, for instance, there are those who may fail to concede defeat. And what will happen? Form rebel groups. But others may opt to go and form rebel groups, like we have now. Someone was telling us that a country, I think DRC, has over 150 rebel groups. Now, 150 rebel groups.
115. Don't add more, Mr. Radisson.
115?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Don't add more 40.
But I think it could be even more than that, because the country is extremely huge, where even the president does not know even where some rebel groups operate from. So, but what I want the implication I'm giving is that when we have all of these rebel groups, as he put, the people who are recruited in those rebel groups are younger people. And the rebel group is a potential death trap. They are just killing people, and people are just being wasted, being killed. Then they go and form humans, and they grow crops on them. Just because of useless wars that are perpetuated by some ill-fated people. So, Mr. Chairman, I want to say that we in Africa, we had what we call the African Union Convention for Protection and Assistance of IDPs living in Africa. It is a convention that came in force in 2012, and it is one of the first continental instruments that legally binds governments to protect the rights and well-being of people forced to flee homes as a result of conflict, violence, disaster, human rights abuses. But the problem is that implementation is a problem, because most of the African countries are potential candidates for violence, are potential candidates for war, and therefore it is very hard to exclude any African country from being an exporter or an importer. There are those who export refugees as a result of wars, and those who are importing may also create a situation that can cause war in another country in order to get the refugees in anticipation of getting the money from the United Nations. We know very much that a country with the refugees, with the highest number of refugees, of course, there's some money that is paid by United Nations.
Thank you.
Finally, as I conclude, Mr. Chairman.
Because conclude you must, Mr. RDC.
Exactly. As I conclude, I think we need to streamline our political trends. Once we streamline our political trends, the leadership, as Mr. Rugarama put it, it means that the economic trend will be also fine, because now that is the whole cause of all effects. I mean, conflict.
That's the cause
is
of
just
the
rotates
of the whole
within
conflict.
economics and politics. If we still believe in political bankruptcy, then we shall continue exporting refugees, we shall continue importing refugees.
Thank you so much.
Otherwise, I want to thank you so much,
Thank you so
Mr.
much,
Chairman,
Mr.
for the
Eric Sakwa.
Free.
Let me invite our very own here, acting spokesperson of the Pan-African Pyramid, and also a student at Chambogo University.
Right Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you for the fortuity to explicate on the nuts and bolts that are surrounding.
Explicate. You make it a bit simple for Frank, the editor.
To elucidate.
Frank, have you understood?
To clearly explain.
Frank, now you have understood.
The nitty-gritties and the nuts and bolts that are surrounding the refugee crisis in
Now
Africa.
the nuts and bolts, he could be looking for a macaron now for the car. Huh?
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't mean to sound apocalyptic, but under this
Eucalyptus.
apocalyptic
Comes from eucalyptus, a tree.
no.
Hey.
That is to foretell disaster.
Okay. Hey.
But one would think that at the prevailing conditions, it is easier to simultaneously characterize the happenings of trivial transgressions than hold accountability for all these senseless wars. The previous panelists have done really so well. But my attention is drawn to the fact that majority of the most neglected refugee crises, 10 of them, the first 10 are in Africa. DR Congo, that is a close neighbor to Uganda, has become a textbook example of neglect. It is the most humanitarian crisis of the century, and unfortunately, those that are inside Africa and the many that are outside Africa keep looking on and at worst even funding while brutal killings happen and civilians get affected. But for the case of having a variation or a difference between optimism and pessimism, the war between Ukraine and Russia has clearly shown the immense gap between what is possible when international community rallies behind a crisis and the daily reality of the millions of civilians that are killed in Africa, while the rest of the world pays a deaf ear and pretends not to know what is happening. How to end senseless wars in Africa. I want to so much hit straight at that. Point number 1. Africa should reshape its priorities. It is very shocking that many African countries have the money to sponsor wars, have huge budgets to purchase heavy armory, but they do not have monies to feed the poor. They do not have the monies to strengthen their economies, and they do not have the monies to get their citizens out of stinking poverty. For third world countries, those that should be protecting us ride in heavy armored vehicles with very many security personnel. Now, imagine someone that gives you the assurance every day that security in your country is guaranteed, moves with another vehicle in front and one at the back carrying over 15 guns. Now, what kind of security is guaranteed for civilians? Secondly, African leaders have to refrain from belligerence. You can call it aggressiveness. There is the African tendency of I crush you. That is actually one of the major causes of that was happening between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Now, if we can refrain from that tendency and know that anytime there is any kind of agibagi, we can always solve it on table.
Agibagi is a type of dress, I hope.
Agibagi are wrangles.
Hey.
Yes. Anytime there are wrangles, we can always solve this on table. We do not have to push our hands close to the node. Thirdly, African countries need to develop social networks among themselves. Uganda and Rwanda recently had issues.
Now they have built the
I want to think,
now they have built the social network.
if there was no social network between Uganda and Rwanda, it would have been a totally different outcome.
That is true.
Thanks to the social network that had been built between the two countries that enabled a negotiation, and I want to tell you, everything is okay now. Point number 4. We can also enforce interim agreements. The problem is the style of governance that is applied in many African countries does not look this direction. But interim agreements means these are before a formal peace treaty is formed. There is always a ceasefire agreement. I want to tell you that current geopolitics will always present wrangles. There will always be disagreement. After all, Chinua Achebe clearly points it out that for any society to proceed, there must be contradiction. The aftermath of contradiction is what we look at here. If we can only learn to cease fire and then lure these efforts to making interim agreements so that we amicably resolve, that would be best. Then lastly, we need to look at political reforms. Political reforms. If African countries have gone for pluralism, then sitting governments must act in a manner so that allows pluralism to take shape.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
It's one thing that is happening in Africa right now on a rampage rate. But before we discuss more, we must ask ourselves, what is causing these conflicts? My issue will be in 3 forms. Our governments are not realizing that upholding human rights is really a crucial thing. Another thing that I think that our continent is facing and is not ready to face it as a lion, it is whereby human rights violation has been so high. Look at a young boy living in Masakadip in the village, denied better education. Her mother died on a sick bed without medicine. And then a certain person comes and tells that young boy that, you know what, if I give you machinery, we can put this government down and you will get what you want. 100% this young boy will fall into this guy's hands. And eventually conflicts will arise. The governments in Africa have failed to realize that upholding democracy is one tool that can make these conflicts to be minimized. Because without democracy, you will see nepotism, you will see blackmailing human rights, you will see a lot of things. For example, I'll give you an example in Kenya. Kenya observes democracy to a certain extent, whereby they have a constitution that allows changing two guard of leadership at a certain period of time. How many conflicts, leave alone the Kibaki and the Odinga saga, which was amicably resolved by Kenyans themselves? They have lived in harmony. They have lived with peace in their country because they know the place of democracy. Look at these other countries, any country, look at Botswana. It upholds democracy. How many conflicts have you seen in Botswana?
Firstly, who is a refugee?
Somebody who is living.
A refugee is a person who is owing a well-founded fear on reasons of race, nationality, political affiliation, or any war against humanity. Africa, refugees in Africa, I'm going to use Africa according to the topic because we are Pan-Africanists. According to my understanding, and they have been perceiving some of these issues, Africa has been prevailing a lot or a huge number of refugees basically on one point, which is ethnic diversity. When I take example from Southern Sudan, by a time when it was in 2013, when the president, His Excellency Salva Kiir, who is a Dinka, that is a different race. By the time when he fired the vice president, Riek Machar, who is a Nuer, a large number of Nuers started riding with the Dinkas, which functioned as a catalyst to generate a high number of refugees in Uganda. Most of refugees were welcomed and granted asylum, and after attained a refugee status in Bidibidi, refugee status in Alua. And others were received in, there is another refugee camp in Isinjiro in western Uganda. Rwamwanja and Nachivale.
Nachivale. We've gone there before. We've delivered relief aid there.
Even when you take another example.
There is also Kiriandongo.
Yeah, there is also Kiriandongo. When you take another example, basing on ethnic diversity, you can also recall in 1994, the genocide in Rwanda. It was also between two ethnic groups, the Hutu and the Tutsi, which also generated a huge number of refugees. And also in Nigeria, the Fulani and the Uswa, they have been fighting basing on what? Or in need of what? It is about power, state power. And the reason why they are fighting, most of African leaders, when they get into power, they don't allow the rule of law to prevail.
If you look at the crisis in Africa, first of all, one of the ways to improve this, I won't take long here, is by improving our governance system. What do I mean by this governance system? Here, we should have accountability, transparency, rule of law, and work towards inclusivity.
Inclusivity.
Yes. And also whereby we need to have social justice. Because what brings most of these crises is because
Lack of social justice.
exactly whereby something can be passed by the ruling government. For example, in Uganda, go to Congo, in the specific DRC Congo, go to Central African Republic, go to countries like Libya, among other countries that are having such conflicts. Remember, it's conflict that brings what? Crisis. So this is whereby they are going to put up maybe in the education system here in Uganda, whereby people who are taken on government merit, most of the students you find, these are the students who are from rich families. They are not from very humble families, you get? Whereby it's easier for them or for me to elucidate or somebody to come and beat around their minds that, you know what?
Thank you.
We no longer have education. What you are going to do, come, we fight the ruling government.
Thank you.
Media. The media affects us a lot because the CNN portrays a very bad image about Africa always.
But
And
are
then-
there was in Africa?
Yes.
Why don't you want the CNN
But when
to show?
an African leader goes to outside, they will say, you're punishing your people, you're killing your people, and that will cause a lot of bias.
So is it true that African leaders are killing their people?
Not always true.
Not always, but sometimes.
Sometimes.
Okay.
So they are demonized by the Western
Oh,
countries.
So the Western media is exaggerating what is happening in Africa.
Very true.
Okay, I get your point. Do you have any other point?
Actually, I have another point,
Make
and
it.
that is the generals. The generals are becoming the problem.
Generals in Africa.
Yes.
Every day we have
They are
so many
using their
generals.
weapons against the government.
Yeah.
Whereby a general is fighting the government of which is a part of the government.
Hey.
So that is a very big problem.
Thank
And
you
then
so
we
much.
should find who funds the rebels. Because the rebel groups are becoming many and they are flowing to other parts of Africa. Africa where they are peaceful and so on.
Thank you. You have made your point.
Talking about the refugee, in introduction, I'm going to just say a refugee is a person who is away from home, like they are lost from home. So, a case in point, what causes this refugee crisis is like, let's just look at the Ukraine and the Russia incident, whereby I think it's not Russia versus Ukraine, but it could be Russia versus NATO. So that's the same problem Africa is going to face, whereby I'm not going to see Uganda fighting Congo, but I'm seeing a person inside a Western body inside Uganda and another Western body inside Congo that's making Uganda and Congo fight. It's not definitely Uganda and Congo fighting.
Oh.
So we have Mr. Eric Sakwa. You could be a person who could talk about this, whereby in your scandals in Ginger, I did not see you, but I saw you versus Tiripati. Is that true?
You did not see him, but you saw him versus who?
I saw, like,
The
let
first
me take him as a clown.
The first element was you did not see him.
I didn't see that.
Now the second element that you saw him.
No, I didn't see him really fighting. But I'm seeing a person inside Sakwa fighting Mr. Tiripati.
Thank you so much.
So winding up, just a minute. So the problems of solving the refugee crisis in Africa.
How does Eric Sakwa now come into a refugee topic? Is Eric Sakwa a refugee?
No, he's not.
Hey.
He's not. Let's try to divide
How
this
did
point.
you relate Eric Sakwa with a refugee? Is he a
No,
refugee?
it's like this.
Hey.
And the comrade is present to join me as we celebrate together with the NBS fraternity for commemorating 15 years of service. Viva NBS at 15 years. Viva. We are proud of you for the service you give to this country, and we pray that you continue doing that great work. Mr. Speaker, the news...
Now, for talking about NBS, I've added you another minute. So you have now 3.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The news was about what caught my attention in relation to today's topic was the UK's Rwanda deportation plan, which was considered unlawful by the court of Appeal in UK. Amongst the points or the benchmarks they used to judge that it is unlawful.
The arguments.
Yes. One of it which caught my attention was that Rwanda is a third world country and that refugees will not be safe in Rwanda. Why am I bringing this as a point in relation to what we are talking about? Mr. Speaker, the classical factor to get to the bottom of any problem, you must clearly understand and identify its root cause. Many of the debaters here have argued that the root cause of these wars are political questions, leadership questions, and so on. But to me, and according to what has been implicated, especially in this case, the most cause of many wars, because I'm taking now the leadership question as a problem, but the root cause of all that is the classical factor. In the manner that there is what they call first class, first world, the middle class, the third world class. Mr. Speaker, sir, here we are seated. The way you are treating us, you treat us in a manner that we are all equal. You try to practice equity. However much I could be having my 100.
At least give me a round of applause. Yeah, they have I am practicing social justice, inclusivity.
Justice. Even if I might be having my
so,
100.
So actually I can become a president of Uganda tomorrow and everybody will be good here.
You're such a good person. But Mr. Speaker, sir, the day you will start giving the people sitting at this age something different from people sitting on the other age, it's the day you will start creating some war within this fraternity.
There will be an internal revolution.
Yes. So the classical factor is what is causing problems. The 100 plus labor groups in DRC, Eastern Congo, you look and find there is an instance where those fighting are saying, we are protecting our rights, we are being mistreated, we are not being served well, so we are trying to fight that we reach at the table where the cage is shared so that we can get our stake. All that goes back to maybe they are seeing they are in a third world class in their own country and other than the first world class. So my point here on how we can overcome all this is when all together, all the stakeholders work tirelessly, work hard to see that at least every person finds him or herself included in the way service being delivered within the country, in the way people are being treated. So you will find that the bridges, the bridge between those who are having and those who don't have can be limited, and wars can be limited for the betterment of the world. Thank you.
Yes, you have caught it actually, but don't pluck it out. Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I just want to run through a few observations I have made out of this beautiful audience. And let me start with a young man who talked about our brother Sakwa's issue. It gives me the indication that you have been following, but for record purposes, it is Comrade Sakwa who was actually fighting the mafia. And he was not part of the mafia. These are the clean politicians we need in NRM. If we can get 2, 3, 4, 5, we shall be good to go. And I introduce you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would wish that you can get these people some of the books. For instance, I would wish you to read a book by Major Kazora. It is Betrayed by My Leader. You do not find it easy to get it, but we can avail copies through the speaker. Then each of you read through. Another one is by Dr. Kuburunga Miriam Matembe, talking about democracy in Uganda. These are important books, and there are others by Pecos Kutesa. You need to read some of these things to appreciate what NRM and other political parties go through. Then, Mr. Speaker, sir, also, somebody mentioned something to do with the media. Yes, media, globally speaking, especially the superpowers, they use media as an extension of their hegemony. CNN, BBC, Fox News, etc. All those are frontiers. Had Christian Amana power left Tripoli, than the regime and the comrade Colonel Gaddafi was invaded, assassinated, and you know the history of Libya from that time. So we know what they usually do, and you are correct. Our media houses here are just an appendage or appendages of the Western media, and they have not helped our cause. We need to do a rethink about our media. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also realized and observed that you bring some good audience who are eager to learn some of these things. Like the young brother who was in the cabinet in Chambogo University, he mentioned about the tribal differences as one of the causes of refugee crisis. Yes, but you must dig deep and know there are even more tribal differences in Europe and America than we have here on the African continent. Do we experience in America what we are experiencing on the African continent? I will tell you that the problem is not between the Nuas and the Dinka per se, but the deep-seated subterranean imperialistic interests in the oil, in the entire region, that they will feel these differences. Now you need to read this, and we shall avail some of this literature.
Of the West.
It's very important. Then finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, the ideological bankruptcy, because people are fighting over religious differences. One is a Muslim, you even don't know the foundation of Islam, you don't know how it started. Another one is so-called the Christian. This is not, has nothing to do with Africa. It's another religion. And all of a sudden you are fighting. But ideologically speaking, you are fighting about Christianity. This blue-eyed Christian, Jewish, whatever they call him, or what, Jesus Christ, is not the Jesus Christ. Our own Jesus Christ was a black man, but he has just been twisted, turned around, and baptized, all sorts of things. So we need to appreciate some of these things for you to be able to carry out. But I'm glad the foundation is very good. Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Comrade Daniel Rugarama, and that is the reason I bring here every Friday. I think where would we be without you this evening, Mr. Comrade Rugarama? Hey, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and you, the audience that comes here every Friday. One thing I pick, or two, or three, if we want to avoid the refugee crisis in Africa, these points I pick them from the audience, the young audience, by the way, the young people here. One of the things they look at is that we should promote social justice. Social justice, that's number one. Inclusivity, that's number two. And the rule of law. Those three aspects. And then Ubuntu. If you practice Ubuntu or humanitarianism or humanism, there is no way you're going to harm your brother. The people that are being recruited, Comrade Rugarama, don't go because we are finishing. And all of us must be in the group photo. We are finishing. These are closing remarks. If all of us could practice humanism or Ubuntu, I don't see you yourself harming your own brother. I don't see it. It is that lack of Ubuntu that is actually causing these conflicts. Imagine, how do you feel? The president of Congo, you are saying, I'm the president of Congo, but 1 million Congolese are in Uganda. But you're the president of Congo. Are you getting the point? How do you feel? You're the president of South Sudan, but 1 million of your own people are in Bidibidi refugee. That's not part of South Sudan. That's Uganda. And most of these refugees, they reach there, then they get status in Canada. Most of them are traveling to Canada now. They are being given citizenship status in Canada. That means you have lost that human being forever. Forever. You have lost that person. So, tomorrow, are you going to lead the trees in South Sudan? No. So, if we could practice these four things, I believe that we would actually hugely reduce on the refugee crisis in Africa. Without that, the issue Comrade Eric Sakwa talked about although he may not qualify to be the right person to talk about it. When you talk about the winner takes it all, and he is the former RDC of the government that takes it all for the last 37 years, he is the RDC of a government that takes it all, and the president itself in that. Comrade Eric Sakwa, I think now I'm trying to redeem you back into the real Pan-Africanism. We should not be promoting the winner takes it all. We should live as brothers and sisters. If somebody lost an election, but lives with the dignity in his own country, in his own village, that person tomorrow can never be swayed to join any rebel group. But a person who loses an election, and you cannot allow him to sleep in his home, huh? The only refugee to run to is the bush. And what is he going to do in the bush? Not to sleep, he's going to plan to fight you. So those are some of the things that actually, when you go to Sudan, if the Dinka are in power, then we are in trouble. Do you get the difference? When you go to Rwanda, if the Tutsi or Hutu are in power, the other group is in trouble. If we don't deal with that kind of selfishness, we all realize that we belong to that country, even when we don't agree, but we live in harmony. We cannot deal with the issue of refugee crisis in Africa.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Join us for the 6th Pan-African Pyramid Global Awards 2023 and 10th Anniversary Bonfire Dinner, recognizing and awarding our forefathers in Pan-Africanism who selflessly fought and defended the rights and freedoms of the black race globally. Happening on the 26th August 2023 at Fairway Hotel from 4 p.m. till late. Dress code is strictly traditional African wear. Come book your dinner card now at table for 8, both 3 million, platinum 1 million, gold 500,000, silver 250,000, bronze 100,000. For inquiries, call 0757 342 317 or 0782 342 317. Powered by the Spy Uganda, Detective Uganda, Fairway Hotel, NBS TV, the Pan-African Pyramid. Africa, don't agonize, organize.